We're going to call the meeting to, okay, we're going to call the meeting to order at 6:08 p.m. And this meeting will be conducted pursuant to the government code 49953E1A. In order to minimize the spread of COVID-19 virus, the Planning Commission is conducting this meeting by Zoom webinar and will be offering alternatives, options to the public participation. You are encouraged to watch the meeting live or on Facebook. Okay, with that, could we take a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Commissioner David Medeiros.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Luis Maching.
Present.
Thank you. Did I say the last name correctly?
Yes, it's correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Vice Chair Jackie Morris Lopez. If you don't mind unmuting yourself so we can hear it audibly for the recording.
Present.
Great, thank you, Vice Chair. Chair Yolanda Delgado.
Present.
The Chair, we have all members present and a quorum is here.
Okay, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. David, would you mind?
Yes, let's all stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you.
You may be seated.
Okay.
Or stand, whichever.
Okay, now the public comments could be only on what is this agenda. Do we have any hand raised, Norma?
Those who have joined us for the meeting tonight that are in attendance, if you wish to speak at this time, this is the opportunity for you to raise your hand by clicking the raise hand button on the bottom of the screen. Or if you've dialed in, you can press *9. We have no hands raised at this time, Chair.
Thank you. And we'll move on to number 3. Any talking about the informal project review? Do we have any, Brian?
No, we don't have any informal project reviews.
Okay, so we're going to 4A and B for the action items to approve the affidavit of the posting of the agenda and B, the minutes of the March 1st, 2022 meeting. Can I?
This is Vice Chair Lopez. I move that we approve of the affidavit of posting of the agenda for tonight's meeting.
I second it.
Can you take a roll call, please, Norma?
Commissioner Medeiros.
Yes.
Commissioner Maching.
Yes.
Vice Chair Jackie Morris Lopez.
Yes.
Chair Yolanda Delgado.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Okay. And now we're going to go to discussion item 5A, the joint meeting with the City Council and the Community Planning scheduled for June 13th. Take it away, Brian.
Sorry, Chair.
Yes.
I believe the motion was only to approve the affidavit of posting. So we would need a motion.
I read both. So, okay. Jackie, do you want to vote? Does anybody want to pass the minutes for March 1st?
I had a question. If we can bring that up separately, please. I read the minute, Chair Delgado, and I had some questions regarding one of the items.
Why don't we pull that now?
Can I just say, Commissioner Morris Lopez, it's very hard to hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now, Brian?
That's better.
Okay, sorry, I was away. Okay, so I was hoping that we could bring that up as a separate item for discussion and approval. I read through the items a couple times, and there was a statement in regards to me rejecting the project the way it was written in regards to the ABC license. I recall that there was discussion around that. And I also recall that you were opposed to having the bar on the first floor with the liquor license. So when I read this, I was really confused about how it read, because I thought that you had stated, Chair Delgado, that you did not want a full liquor license. Maybe we can just take that piece and look at it. Maybe staff can help us, Brian, or yeah, before we take a vote on it. I just want
So
clarity.
we'll have to bring March 1st minutes to this, the next meeting. So we can correct the comments on motion was made by Chair Delgado, second by McShane. Is that the one? Yeah.
The one that's the confusion for me was over how it was presented regarding the liquor license.
Can I recommend something for that meeting with respect to the record?
Sure.
It's possible, since we have a recording, that we can prepare a transcript for that portion of the meeting. Would that be helpful?
Great. Yes. Excellent.
Okay. That would give you the flow of conversation and the actual text of the motion and the comments. And it did go back and forth. It was a little confusing.
Okay.
So yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Norma, for catching that. Okay, so now can we go? We'll hold off on approving the minutes for March 1st, 2022, and let's go with the discussion items. Brian?
Yes. Let's see here. So the first discussion item is all about your upcoming meeting with the City Council. I'm going to share my screen in a second here, but we have had a series of public engagement meetings related to the community plan. And we're at a point now in the community plan program where a conversation between advisors and decision makers on the community plan, mapping, configuration, sphere of influence configuration, that started with the Urban Growth Boundary Committee and ended up as a full-fledged planning program with recognition that that planning program that we had started for the south end of San Juan Bautista really couldn't be completed or even contemplated without looking at our sphere of influence. And so it was a natural evolution to blend those two programs together to create this community plan process. And that's why I think when you see what's happening with the community plan, we're looking at really two different areas, and a lot of significance is being given to the south end of town. You'll see on the maps that I'll go through in a few minutes, and some attention to the north end, but a lot of attention on the south end, because that's really where the mix of uses is more complex and where it seems as though the most land available within the existing city limits and areas adjacent to the city limits are available, and where the most significant need for infrastructure improvements could be found that need to be funded and supported by financing programs. So, that whole exercise through the Urban Growth Boundary Committee to the Planning Commission and City Council, authorizing the community scope of work for the community plan, and then beginning the community plan program through the through the charrettes that we had, the public meetings that we had a few weeks ago, and the charrette process that we had just a short time ago, get us to this point where we can actually have intelligent conversation about options. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here and see if I can. The report that we prepared for the City Council. Can everyone see this?
No, Brian, I can't see your screen.
Oh, okay. So had this happen before where it doesn't want to cooperate. Maybe it's too big a document, just a minute. It says I'm screen sharing, but it won't let me stop share either. So.
Do you want me to try to stop it, Brian?
Yeah, see if you can. And then I can try again.
Okay.
Okay, all right, well, let's try that again. Is that visible?
We got it.
All right, very good. That's what it looked like before. So there's a lot of information in the report graphically, text-wise, not too much, but graphically, yeah. So this is the report that we put together for the Joint Planning Commission and City Council meeting. And my intention this evening is just to have the Planning Commission have an advanced look at this before the conversation really begins. You know, the City Council has had this, will have it at the same time, but really, you know, there's no real opportunity for the City Council to look at this in advance of the joint meeting. But, you know, I think that everybody will be fine. Planning Commission, you know, I think, you know, we're really do need to make sure that everybody's informed about how we started this. And so, you know, there was some attendance at the charrette, and some commissioners were there, some commissioners were not. Some commissioners participated in the meetings that we had, and some did not. So, you know, this is kind of sort of levels the playing field a little bit with respect to the commission's knowledge. And so, with respect to existing boundaries and the Urban Growth Boundary Committee, it was first recognized that LAFCO has adopted a sphere of influence for the city. And the 2016 general plan proposes a sphere of influence, all of which are represented, each of which are represented in the Exhibit 1. I'm just going to keep scrolling back and forth a bit here. So this is Exhibit 1, which shows the existing city boundary in white. It shows the general plan sphere of influence. Maybe I reduce a little bit here to 75%. There we go. And so this shows the existing city boundary, the existing proposed general plan sphere, and you can see on the outside edge of everything, the LAFCO adopted sphere of influence, which is really no longer relevant to us because of the proposed general plan sphere here in red. So there's a disconnect between our local policies and the LAFCO sphere that really needs to be corrected with this exercise. So here we have again, the City Council appointed an Urban Growth Boundary Ad Hoc Committee. Commissioner Morris Lopez and Louis McChain were both on that committee. And the outcome of that committee after several months of discussion was a concept for looking at the sphere of influence, and not necessarily an urban growth boundary, but looking at a way of thinking about what should be areas that are available for development, areas that might be more appropriate for conservation and preservation for any variety of reasons. And this map is a little complex because it shows Williamson Act properties and crosshatch properties that are contracted for to keep in agricultural production. It shows in very faint, you can see in really faint blue here, a FEMA flood zone. You can see the earthquake special study zone that the city has. And then considering all, and then here on this side, you see areas that are prime farmland, according to soils mapping. So we do have a lot of constraints around the community, and we have a lot of community character concerns involved in the landscape surrounding the community. I think the Urban Growth Boundary Committee took these constraints and these issues to heart and developed a concept, whether this configuration remains through the Sphere of Influence program or not. These are concepts involving an area close by the city, which could be considered for development, and then an area a little bit remote and also on the east side of the community that really committee felt we should look more closely at preservation, whether these end up being preserved. You can see here on the Nyland Ranch Conservation Area, already preserved open space. So these areas are not necessarily a recommendation by the Urban Growth Boundary Committee. They are food for thought and a starting point, as we've said to everyone since this program started, for allowing the public, community, planning commission, city council to look at the recommendation for a two-tier sort of perspective in establishing a sphere of influence, areas that would be subject to development and areas that would be more appropriate for conservation and preservation for a variety of reasons. So,
so what's can I interject here a little bit?
of course, yes.
Oh, so what's the difference between tier 1 and tier 2?
Well, tier 1 are areas that, and I'm just going to, in a nutshell, areas that were considered, and I have the text here of the report that we provided to the Planning Commission and City Council when the Urban Growth Boundary Committee recommendation was first presented. So you see here, the first two tiers, orange, are parcels generally adjacent to the city and represent logical areas for planned residential, commercial, industrial, employment generating uses that are including areas that are currently configured for a residential area specific plan. Remember, I mentioned the specific plan that we're combining with the Sphere of Influence study. And some of these are in Williams Act contracts. And so the importance of these orange areas is that establishes in the community's mind concepts for contiguity, concentric growth, land use compatibility, circulation, and open space objectives. And so we're really looking at land that is really has a close relationship with with areas that are currently within the city boundaries and are already considered appropriate for development. The second tier, yellow, are areas where land uses would likely affect community character and resource conservation, agriculture, watershed, natural resource protection, the areas that are key to the city's character, rural character. And so I think that the important thing about the urban growth boundaries recommendation is this distinction between areas that are really important to look at in order to promote economic development or to achieve our residential growth objectives in concert with areas that are already within the city, and then other areas that are more appropriate for conservation and preservation. So I think this is a very important work that the committee included with their recommendation. The important thing is this concept where we look at land uses within our sphere for two different, entirely different reasons. And so we wanted to make sure that the community understood this was the starting point. This was very clear in the charrette that we had at the gym. And, you know, so we had a series of community meetings. And out of those community meetings, there were some considerations, comments and considerations regarding economic development. And you can see here a variety of reasons related to economic development or factors that should be considered according to comments that we received in considering the sphere of influence. Future growth in San Juan Bautista, what that growth should accomplish, what its intent, what its purpose should be, what the limitations should be, and what the nature of those limitations should be in terms of informing the community's character over a long period of time. And then there was a lot of attention to living, working, and playing in San Juan Bautista. What's the character of our community? How do we want to be in the next 20, 30 years? do we really want to, have certain amenities? What are those amenities? What are the important things that we want to achieve as a community? And so this list of living, working, and playing in San Juan Bautista were very important comments to help us understand and inform the plan regarding those attributes. And I think what I'd like to do is go ahead and finish going through the report. And if I know people have some raised hands, if the commission agrees, I will go through the report and then we can have raised hands. But I'm happy to interrupt what I'm doing, of course. What would you guys like?
Brian, I have a raised hand. Just the question that I have: when does the sphere of influence need to be done before? Is there an end date, or you have to do it at a certain time?
Well, we have a grant that funds 2/3 of this effort, and that grant has a sunset. The funds have to be expended and a report sent to HCD, Housing and Community Development, in the fall. And so we hope to be completely finished with our recommendation to present to, if not to adopt the sphere and to go through LAFCO, which requires a CEQA document, which takes quite a bit of time, but at least a recommendation for rezoning and general plan amendments and a sphere configuration for some of these areas in October. So it's pretty fast in terms of an overall plan. And now we want to get to the county with an influential document that will be, then given great weight by LAFCO through the rest of the process that we have to go through. So that's our overall schedule, and it's really being driven by this grant program that we're in. And again, there were some other further comments. And again, if you'd like to interrupt me to consider other raised hands, just please let me know, and I'll be happy to stop.
This is Vice Chair.
There are some open space preservation comments here. I think that a lot of comments and concerns about the nature of
Brian?
Yes.
Vice Chair Morris Lopez would like to ask you a question.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, Brian. I think because you did
I'm
mention.
having trouble hearing you, Jackie.
Yes, because you did mention the deadline being in the fall, as Chair Delgado had asked about that. And it sounds to me, since we're talking about that particular area, it seems like it's quite expedited for me. Based on I was at the charrette, and I did make a comment that the community members present were nowhere near, I think, a broad enough community involvement to really formulate or come up with some hard and fast options to present and vote on with the Planning Commission and City Council, and then formulate into a formal plan to present to the HCD and also LAFCO. I just feel that the timeline is being pushed. So my question is, because it's determined by the grant that you were provided with, what happens if we can't meet that deadline or come to a good consensus, and we need to consider the community at large, and they're just not in agreement with what's being presented to them, or they have other ideas that they prefer?
Mm-hmm.
What happens to the grant?
Sure. Yeah, a good question. My feeling is, and by the way, Jackie, I'm still having a bit of trouble, although I pushed my earphones close to my head and was able to catch
I've got
everything.
my mic on full volume. Is that better? Can you hear me?
That's a little better. Yes.
Okay.
That's better. That's much better.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a very good question. We hope to have as much community input available for people as want to participate, and we did broadly, send out the engagement notices, and we did. I think we did a pretty good job letting the community know that we were doing this. I don't know whether we captured every single person in the charrette that wanted to attend. I think we got people there that were really, really interested, and I think you always wonder when you go through a community engagement process whether you really did a thorough job. And I know I said that this is relatively fast, but I don't think it's at the expense of community engagement. We'll go through the Planning Commission, City Council joint public hearing, and then there will be a series of public hearings about the preferred option that the Planning Commission and City Council come up with. So there will be hearings. Those will be open to the public. There will be more comments taken. The plan will be a preliminary, and then it will be a draft plan all the way up to the point where we have to submit it as a plan. And there are a variety of ways that we can submit this to HCD, in my opinion. And I haven't really explored this in depth with our consultants, but there are a number of ways that we can present a finished product to HCD sufficient to satisfy the grant. And we can show expenditures, grant expenditures of an amount that would be consistent with the amount that we got, and show HCD a cohesive deliverable. And whether that cohesive deliverable then is at a point where it can be presented to LAFCO is a different matter. That is not a requirement for the HCD grant. The HCD grant wants us to do sufficient planning to show residential that we're going to meet our RENA numbers. And everyone knows our RENA numbers are very low, relatively speaking, over a 5-year period. They're not really earth-shattering or difficult to accomplish. So I think that we're going to be okay with respect to the schedule. And after whatever we submit, package up and send to HCD, I'm sure that the remainder of the program will enable a lot of further conversation to occur in the context of the recommendation that the City Council authorizes us to transmit to the county for their consideration. So I just have to say we will not proceed unless we're sure that we've had great community input. That's all I can say. I can't say that we're doing the best we can, because that makes it seem as though there really is a better, there's a better objective. But no, I think that we're doing everything that we can at this point to ensure that we have great comments and input. For example, we're going to do the joint meeting, Planning Commission City Council meeting, but we're also going to meet during the same week with interest groups of various kinds. And so we have some stakeholder input that our consultants are still going to do, even though we have this one joint meeting. So we're not stopping here with this joint meeting. We are continuing to engage with the various stakeholders in development interests, in open space and preservation interests, and in institutional interests, the mission, the school, the city, and so forth. So I think the public engagement program through Blue Zones is pretty comprehensive. But point noted, definitely, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Okay, so what we have here are community design alternatives, and Exhibit 3, which I'm going to quickly scroll to, shows a sort of a composite map, and I'm going to go even lower than 75% here. Maybe that's better. Sort of give you an overall look at the map. It's a composite map. It shows the city limits, the LAFCO adopted sphere, general plan proposed sphere in red, as you've seen before, and then a design charrette derived sphere, which is in black here. So if we look at all the comments that we received during the charrette, the area outlined in black is the sort of composite derived sphere, regardless of land uses. And then outside the sphere of influence is a planning area derived from the charrette input, which would enable us to exert some influence over what happens outside the city sphere, and sort of says to the county, this is maybe outside our sphere, but it's in our planning area boundary, and these are areas that we really care about what happens in terms of preservation, in terms of open space, and any kind of development that may occur, although however unlikely. So then the first, I'm not going to go back to the text here, but what this shows here is a maximum preservation map. This is also derived from the charrettes. You can see here, and I'm going to go up a little bit in percentage, back up to 75%, so you can read the legend. But you see here that in the chart, how much land is being preserved, how much land is being made available for development, how much land on a percentage basis is there for proposed industrial development, and how much is there for historic preservation purposes. So you can get an idea from this map. If we did maximum preservation based on the charrette comment, this is what it would look like. Some areas for development, but a lot of areas set aside for preservation. Again, if we did a maximum residential map with the same configuration, and this is how the appropriate way to look at these maps is that the overall configuration remains the same. Planning area boundaries, sphere of influence boundary, and so forth. But these are different land use percentage looks. And so you can see here, residential, commercial, industrial, get a little bit larger. There's still a lot of preservation within the planning area and adjacent to the proposed and within the proposed sphere. So this again represents the maximum residential look if we were to respond to all the charrette comments that we received for residential development. And then if we were to look at comments that we received from the charrette about industrial, commercial and industrial development, this map cuts down the residential a little bit and expands the commercial industrial a little bit more. So we see a little bit more influence of commercial industrial land uses in the same general configuration. And again, I think the bulk of the preservation really is in the charrette design study area. There's a lot in the sphere, but there's still quite a bit in the study area that we want to show the county. If this is the maximum commercial industrial area would be available. So these are the different maps that we're going to look at. Now, if you look at this particular table here, and we just looked at these exhibits, 4A, 4B, and 4C. And so if you look at the preservation, maximum preservation under this scenario, first maximum preservation, you get preservation of 1,600 acres, maximum residential preservation area is 1,500, and it's still pretty substantial under maximum commercial and industrial. You can see the big difference here between the split between residential and commercial for the maximum preservation under commercial mixed land uses. The maximum preservation for residential would be 249 acres. Maximum preservation of maximum residential under maximum residential is 360 acres. And then maximum commercial and industrial acreage under the residential, maximum residential is 272 acres. And so you can see the difference between the commercial and the residential is pretty significant, especially when you look at the difference between the proposed residential land uses, the maximum residential, and the maximum commercial industrial is quite a bit different. The difference between maximum residential in terms of preservation, not quite so significant here, but I think 249 versus 360 acres is a significant difference between the maximum preservation and the maximum residential in terms of residential development acreage. So that that gives you an idea of how to look at the various maps. And again, we're not here to make decisions or to make recommendations to the city council, but just to understand how the information is being presented as a way of looking at different land use configurations. And so in that regard, during the joint Planning Commission City Council meeting, the consultants would like to ask several questions. Do you agree with the planning area boundary? And then how would you change that? Again, that would be the area shown on the maps, planning area boundary shown on the maps in this hash pattern, okay? Then the other question is, you know, what would you change if you disagree? Where would you shrink that, or where would you expand it, and why, I think? And keeping in mind that some of these boundaries were created in order to exert influence over land that should be preserved in agriculture or other kinds of land uses that are more conservation oriented. And so the second question is, if you were to consolidate these three maps into one preferred map, what would that look like? And what sort of changes would need to be made to create one preferred map? And, you know, out of all the maximums that are presented here, one preferred map is possible. It was possible that out of all these maximums, there won't be a maximum commercial industrial, there won't be a maximum residential, and there won't be a maximum preservation. But it's possible that there could be a skew one way or the other among these three different looks. And so the third question is, do you agree with the locations and types of land uses? Do you think that, for example, if you're looking at the map here, do you think that these land uses shown in maximum preservation are shown in the appropriate location? Should they be shown differently? You'll notice up here, close to the city boundary, that's being shown maximum preservation. When you drop down and look at it for maximum commercial industrial, you see that's now industrial. So looking at these three maps together, sort of one after the other, putting them side by side might be helpful. And we are going to have large maps for the Planning Commission and City Council to do just that during the joint meeting. So yeah, so looking at the arrangement of land uses is going to be important, and also looking at the quantities. My sort of feeling is that if we start looking at the location and the relationship between land uses, the quantities will fall out naturally. And so there's some methodology there that suggests that looking at the data may not be the best approach, but looking at what makes sense from a land use standpoint and from the standpoint of relationships, and especially with respect to the relationship between preservation areas and development areas, would be an important consideration. So I hope that helps a little bit, and I know that there are questions.
Thank you, Brian. Let's ask David any thoughts and comments or concerns. Commissioner Medeiros?
Well, thank you for asking. I do have some comments. I went through all this whole package, and probably why I asked what was the difference between the orange and the yellows and the greens and stuff like that when you look at each map. And what I tried to do when I went through this whole package was to overlay in my mind, where do we want to go with all this? So what I've done is I picked out a map of the whole thing and said, well, I'm going to begin with whichever. I'm not going to tell you today, but just what I went through. and said, I'm going to build from that map, looking at all 5 or 6 maps into one, which I think we need to go when it comes to the sphere of influence, what have you. The only hint I can give you at this time where I'm going, for instance, I prefer to go with, which is the sphere of influence, and then we're talking about a boundary, which is the urban growth boundary. And I'm thinking, if we combine the two, just for example, if we combine the two, how will that be described? You know, what is the sphere of influence and how is that described? And how important, if we're going to combine the two, for instance, what does the urban growth boundary have in respect to the influence and describe in the general plan? Eventually it will roll up to that, where we're going with that. So that being said, and so that's what I did as far as trying to get clarity for me. And hopefully by Thursday, on the 13th, I'll have a plan in my mind where I'd like to go and share, and hopefully that'll work. The other thing too, by the way, thanks, Ryan, that's pretty good stuff that we're put together. The package is pretty good, but there's a, so anyway, so I also went through all the questions and said, okay, question number 1, all the way down to question number 4, if I'm going to have a map that I want to overlay, how is that going to be described in each one of these questions? And hopefully, if I describe it correctly, maybe it'll present itself and give us all an idea. Maybe that's a good way to go. If not, then we have to combine everybody else's what do you call it, comments and concerns, or what they think on how they answered the same question. But that's what I did to prepare that. And I think I've gone through that as an exercise where I'm prepared to present that, let's say, in my mind at the meeting. So that's what I've done for myself. So to let you all know, that's the way I'm going right now. And then, of course, the other thing too that I found out in this conversation, when we're talking about the regional housing need allocation, when we're talking about that, that's not a mandate on our part. It's just a number that we put out there so that we have it in the general plan. That's a direction that we're going in. Whether we serve that or not depends on how, still depends on how we decide, how do we increment that into our, what's called serving the general plan eventually. So it's not a mandate. And I think that's where I'm at right now. Thank you. If anybody's got any questions for me, fine. But right now, I think I'm looking at an overlay of everything that we're talking about, what I think what it should be looking like, and presented it on my part at the meeting when we get together with City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Luis Machain, Commissioner Machain, do you have anything, comments, concerns?
No, really, I have really clear what we've done with the boundaries committee. I think we did a good job, I think, and I have everything clear about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Machain. Commissioner Morris Lopez, any comments, questions, or concern?
Thank you, Chair Delgado. I think for me personally, I would like to wait and see what the community desires, because this should be community driven. I feel it's still very, even though we have the consultants that have put together this nice report, and Brian was instrumental in it as well in the presentation today, I still feel it's too premature to limit us to 3 maps, and these 3 maps being the guiding plans that we can either tweak, readjust, add. I really want more public input. So my hope is that we get some more input on Monday. So I'll reserve comment for that until then to really make some definitive remarks, other than I'm going to finish with one thing that I remember hearing Brian say to us. I did attend one of those community meetings back in, I believe it was March. And, we're looking at primarily the area that we want to build and expand with these maps is not in San Juan city limits proper right now because we have a finite amount of land. Where we're looking at is across the highway on Mission Vineyard, the Alameda. So, there's a finite amount of land there. And if you recall, we recently had one commissioner that was eliminated from sitting with us because she moved to one side of Mission Vineyard, which is not the city limits, it's the county. Okay, so there's also a finite amount of land that falls into the city limits. And the last comment that I heard Brian say to us at that meeting, you recall this, Brian, and it really impacted me because that's been my feeling all along, is that we really build density out there, whether it's a combination of maximum residential or a combination of maximal industrial and mixed use, you're going to get the same impact on that one thoroughfare leading out of that area. And that's people jumping on the Alameda and waiting at the stoplight that intersects with 156. And we see already what's happening to our local roadways. And your comment was, you have to think hard and fast about this and whether you want to put people in harm's way. And I'll leave you with that thought. That was your quote. And I really thought about that, taking it to heart. Do we want to put people in harm's way by density population, by density commercial, by business, when we have a finite amount of land there and we have beautiful rural land surrounding that? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Morris Lopez. I have a lot to say, but I'll wait till Monday to solidify what I want. And that's all. Is there any public comment, Norma? Could
Yes, Chair, we do have a hand raised. And for those who have joined us tonight, if you would like to speak on this matter, please use the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen, or if you've joined us by phone, press the *9. At this time, Wanda Gubert, I brought you in, and if you unmute yourself, your 3-minute timer will start.
Good evening. I think I'm off. I think I'm audible. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation. And Brian, you've spoken a lot about public engagement. I appreciate that. You've commented on community outreach, community input. I appreciate that as well. With the caveat that that's all anecdotal. You don't live in town, Brian. Don doesn't live in town. The consultants don't live in town. You may not have a good idea of who lives in the city of San Juan Bautista. You have some very outspoken business members who do not live within the city limits. Bless them for being business owners. I can't fault them for that, but you have to remember who lives in the city of San Juan Bautista. And we have to be careful about, the outspoken not representing the silent majority. I don't know if this is a matter that we have to bring to the registered voters of San Juan Bautista or how we're going to approach this, but anecdotal evidence is not evidence. It's simply anecdotal. It's interesting. It's not scientific evidence. You can't really use it to present an argument. I taught argument. It doesn't qualify as substantial evidence. I guess those are the most important points I have to make. David, you mentioned that this is not a mandate. I'm not sure if I'm on the same page with you. I agree that it's not a mandate. Yes, the governor has mandated a certain amount of housing for the city of San Juan. San Benito County, as I've read, is #1 in the state for housing. We do not have the water. We do not have the resources. We do not have the infrastructure. I think we can dig in our heels and say, I'm going to say, hell no. I have lived here 20 years. I've been a naive person who listens to city managers, who listens to planners, and I'm not going to do it anymore. I think we need to be cautious. We need to be careful. We need to do what we think is best for the city of San Juan Bautista. Thank you.
Thank you, Wanda.
Thank you.
Any more hands?
At this time, we do not have any more hands raised from the public.
Thank you. Okay. And any of the commissioners have any rebuttals? David? David? Commissioner?
Yes, I even got my hand raised too, by golly. Yeah, I just want to say that, whatever things that I'm saying at this point in time, those are generalizations on my part. I'm not speaking for, but I'm acting for and by our public. What is expected for our citizens in our city? If I say there's no mandate, I do understand that what we need to do, if we're going to have any further development in our sphere of influence, it's going to have to take in consideration everything that we need to do to make sure that we do it sensibly. That's all I'm saying. And we may not build one more building from here on out, because that's where we end up as a public, as a regional local agency saying, hey, and because we have the information available through us for the state, and say, hey, you said we're going to do this and that, and but we're not going to do that here because we have the answers to say that whatever you got for us to do in the state, we're answering back and saying, yeah, we agree with you. And what we see from the state is we're not to build anymore here. So somewhere we have an answer to do that. The other thing about the county, that's really my concern. If we're designated as a #1 county because we have all this land just ready to be developed, nothing's going to happen as far as I'm concerned here in San Juan, as long as I'm alive, and making sure that if we have one more building going up, it has to be scrutinized to the max. Historically, preservation wise, open space, whatever it takes. And it's not coming from me. I'm hoping it doesn't just come from me. I'm hoping my interpretation will speak for the public. That's where I'm going to go with this. So, thank you.
And I just
Thank you, Commissioner Maderos. Brian?
Yeah, my voice is starting to give out. Sorry, but I just wanted to mention, I know our consultants, and Blue Zones and EMC. They've been planning work all over California. Blue Zones is highly regarded in terms of their public engagement expertise. And I can tell you for sure that John and I are not influencing the plan. We're listening, and we have required our consultants to listen. And we will do the best we can to make sure that an opportunity for people to speak up is provided. And I'm not sure we're ever going to get scientific relevance here, but I can assure you that we are listening, and that we're not putting our own personal stamp on the plan, because we just don't do that. So I just wanted to make that. We have the Planning Commission and City Council to represent the community, and that's the purpose of the joint meeting. So hoping we have a great meeting Monday night. And oh, by the way, the forum that we have set up for the meeting is that the City Council will be sitting with 3 maps on a table in a circle, and then the seating arrangement will be the community around the Planning Commission and City Council. So it won't be a situation where the City Council and Planning Commission are up there responding to the consultant's input, and then the public gets a chance to speak. We're going to arrange it so that people can have an opportunity to participate, watch, listen, participate in the meeting as the City Council and Planning Commission discuss these options. And I really believe that we're going to have different options that come out of this. So it's going to be an interesting process. So we just wanted to make that assurance.
Thank you. Okay, with that, Brian, can we go? Any more commissioners need to add on to comments? Okay, the next discussion item is the open letter.
You're muted, Brian.
I do not have a copy of the open letter to share screen. I think everybody has received a copy of it, has it. I have asked the city attorney, just to start out here, about the potential for the commission to make decisions tonight concerning the open letter. And I'm concerned that if there is action that the commission wants to take, that is action is not on the agenda. Discussion is on the agenda. And so actions that the commission may want to take, you might want to schedule that for your next meeting as an action item. But that would certainly be something that you can discuss. And then when it comes time to talking about the next agenda, request that that item be placed on the agenda for consideration of commission action related to the open letter.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Anybody?
Understandable?
Yes. Anybody? Let's go with Luis Machain. Commissioner Machain, do you have any comments, questions, or concern about the open letter?
Well, I think, yeah, one of I think the guy who wrote this letter, I think he is I'm agree in part about the because recently we have some meetings that was kind of to me looks really unprofessional. I personally I didn't like it, so I particularly agree with that meetings. So that is the part I'm agree with.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luis.
Yeah, the another part about the we don't attend, and I don't know. The regular, he says that regular we don't attend. I don't know what he says that, because I think I only have one absent, and that's it. But okay.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Machain.
Thank you.
Commissioner Medeiros, do you have any comments, questions, or concern on the open letter?
The only comment I have at this time is I am not going to speak on anything further or move forward on this unless I can speak in front of the city council in general, all of them. I'd be happy to talk about an open letter. They issued it, they all signed it, an attorney was there. I don't have any discussion at this time. If you want to have a meeting to go forward, I will attend that meeting and discuss it then. If all the members of city council is in attendance along with the attorney, be happy to go forward with the discussion with this open letter and what do we do with it afterwards. But if we have a meeting just the planning commission, I don't want to do that. I won't well, I'll be there, but I won't participate. The only time I discuss it is if we're in front of the city council and an attorney. I'd appreciate that very much if we go forward from this day. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Medeiros. Commissioner Morris Lopez, any comments?
Yes, I think it's really relevant that we read a copy of that letter so that we can be reminded. I think we have public, since in the spirit of transparency and actually Brown Act, and we're discussing an item, it wasn't included in the packet, even though it's a discussion item. We still need to have that. I would like someone to pull that copy up, maybe the clerk, maybe someone.
Thank you, Jackie.
I have a copy of it.
And the reason why I'm requesting that is I was a participant at the council meeting when this open letter was not even discussed. It was on an action section. They all said they refrained from discussing it, excuse me. And so I was at a loss as to what letter they were talking about. And then I dug around in their 129-page packet for that particular meeting, and I found it. And I was astonished. So I think we owe the public, we owe everyone that's attending tonight, and also that they can go back and listen to this recorded meeting. They can be privy to what that letter exactly states. So in order to make comments, I'd like that letter read tonight.
Do you want to read that, David? Commissioner Maderos?
Sure. Hang on. I've got so much highlights on it. Maybe I can't read it. No. Let's see here. Okay, word for word. This is from the City Council of San Juan Bautista. It says an open letter from the City Council to the Planning Commission. The manner and demeanor in which the Planning Commission and its individual members reach decisions must be representative of the overall character and culture of the City of San Juan Bautista. First paragraph. Second paragraph. Each of the city constituents bodies, the city council, commissions, and committees, and the city staff members must work together to always demonstrate preparation, professionalism, and mutual respect for others who may hold different views. Respect for and consideration of all viewpoints is integral to reaching informed decisions. That was the second paragraph. The third paragraph. Planning Commission meetings should be a source of pride for commissioners, the city council, and other citizens, and reflect what is best in our community. However, the city council has come to believe that the Planning Commission's deliberations often fail to demonstrate the mutual respect, courtesy, and the community focus and values which the council expects from the Planning Commission, and which the council believes are essential to engender the necessary level of confidence in the commission's decision from our citizens and the development community. This is profoundly disappointing and gravely concerning to the city council. That was the third paragraph, and now the fourth. The Planning Commission frequently acts in quasi-judicial role and must regularly make well-informed, legally defensible decisions that are supported by substantial evidence in the record. These are essential and integral elements of every decision made by the commission. Unfortunately, individual commissioners are sometimes absent from or late to meetings, frequently appear to be unprepared or unfamiliar with the staff report, ignore evidence, interrupt one another, challenge staff's professional advice, and reach arbitrary conclusions. This behavior is indicative of an insufficient level of commitment and lack of professionalism by some commissioners, and it creates a risk of legal challenge based upon the commission's abuse of its discretion. Again, let me read that last sentence. This behavior is indicative of an insufficient level of commitment and lack of professionalism by some commissioners, and it creates a risk of legal challenge based on that of the commission's abuse of its discretion. The final paragraph reads, this letter should not be construed as criticism of any single commissioner. Rather, it is intended to address issues pertaining to the commission as a whole. The council must review its assessment of how the commission is performing its legally mandated function against the council's expectations. This letter should be considered as notice to the city council finds that the Planning Commission, a council appointed body, is not meeting the city council expectations in terms of demeanor and performance. That's all I got.
Thank you, David. Commissioner Maderos, Commissioner Morris Lopez, anything to add?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Maderos, for reading that letter despite your highlighting. So right there's a lot of contradictions that I hear, okay? And this letter, first of all, like I said, it was very annoying and disturbing, and I felt really unfair that this letter got drafted and presented at one of their regular meetings. It was, there was no discussion. There was no notification from the mayor to our chair to have a meeting with city management to give us a heads up. You know, I felt the whole process, how this letter came about, was in poor taste. It left nothing but, I feel, the public to look at us, you know, with a jaundiced eye, to mistrust us, that we don't have the capability, the professionalism, all of the terminology that's in that letter that has been slung at us. Okay. And behind what the public doesn't know is that myself and the chair have been for the better part of about 8 weeks going on this, correct, Chair Delgado? We have been just behind the scenes reaching out to staff to try to correct some of these misperceptions or these perceptions, and actually not perceptions, they're actually things that have been happening with certain individuals that were commissioners. And we did not get any resolution. We were trying to fix this. So I think the city council was unaware of what we were doing as the chair and the vice chair to try to rectify or mitigate the issue. Our hands were tied. We tried to take care of this before it came to this. And it was just very suspect to me, the timing of it all and the nature of how it came about. Like I said, it was sort of like a sledgehammer to the head when I was sitting there and had to dig up the letter. And I think it was quite unfair. And they're promoting cooperation and professionalism. Well, I think the letter speaks the opposite to those two traits. I'll be very frank with you. And the other thing about the contradictory statement that, you know, they quoted, this is in regards to some of the commissioners, but then at the end of the letter, they summarize and say, please do not take this as singling anyone out, but yet they stated some. So, you know, they should have come clean and had these sort of commission to council meeting, however it would have taken place without a violation of the Brown Act. We have a city attorney. We could have consulted with, they could have consulted with him. They could have had an ad hoc meeting. There could have been some other mechanism to avoid this, because it's public shaming. That's what I think. And it puts a lot of, you know, mistrust, I think, from the public and the remaining commissioners that are here. And it leaves us looking at each other and thinking, well, you know, we went wrong. You know, we're not doing our job. We're not professional. And it's really regretful that it came to this. And that's what I have to say about it. I think we have to maybe as a group come up with a rebuttal or have, you know, have a meeting that we can discuss this, because we did try to fix this behind the scenes.
Commissioner Morris Lopez, thank you. Well, Jackie, I've been trying to get Dawn and Brian since last July. I have emails with my concerns of the conduct of and no help. So it's even longer than you have tried and I have tried. So it's not, and I take it to, I'm very, almost a year later, they decide to, and I've asked last meeting, who was the one that brought it up on an action item? And if the city council just didn't discuss it prior to this, did they have a closed meeting? Was it a Brown Act violation? Who put it on the action item and without a discussion from the city council? So I don't know what's going on there. And Brian, your recommendations are recommendations. They're not gospel. They're not the 10 commandments. And I will challenge you, because I'm voting for the city the good, the best for the city. And I don't mean to take it personally, but some of your recommendations, if I don't agree with them, I will challenge you. And I don't take it personal, but I take this job very seriously. I'm representing the residents of San Juan Bautista. I'm not representing the city hall, and I'm going to challenge you. And don't take it if the city, Don, and you can't take it, then I don't know what to say, but I will question you about some of the things that are on the agenda. And I'm very passionate. And because a woman speaks loudly and aggressively in this misogynistic world, they're considered, oh, she's trouble. Oh, but when a man speaks loudly and confidently, oh, he's a great man. So that's what you need to understand, Brian. I will challenge you because I'm voting for the city of San Juan, not for Yolanda Delgado, or for the city council. And the attendance that I received, it's from whoever sent it to me, which I won't say I know who sent it, was incorrect. You know, you guys write this action letter, but then I've asked since March 24th about attendance, and I get no response. I mean, help me to help you so we can have a smooth meeting. If I continually ask and it doesn't get fixed, then yeah, I'm going to be very upset. You know, we had a meeting with you back March 24th for particular items, and I don't know what it is. I mean, and yet we get an open letter, like I don't know what's going on. I did since last July, and I got no response from you guys. Thank you. Commissioner Medeiros?
Yeah, in light of what everyone has said tonight, we're discussing it. Thank you very much. But I would like to take what you all discussed just now in front of Brian, in front of public. This is an open public meeting. I would like to take that forward. If we're going to do something about it from this day forward, is to go forward and only do that in front of city council in an open public meeting, because it's an open letter, it's public, no matter what they said or did.
Yeah.
So let's respond in the same manner. And if we're going to, let's start corrective action right now where it belongs, with the planning commission going forward, but only for and ready to discuss this openly with city council. And talking about absence and presence and attendance, hopefully they'll all be there. And if they can't, we won't have the meeting until they're all present. That's my take. And if you're not going to do that, well, I'll do what I can, but I don't think it's going to get anywhere unless we do this publicly, because it's open. It's in front of everybody right now, whether you like it or not. No one's to blame, they say, but everybody's to blame. Okay, I'll go with that premises. If everybody's to blame, so let's open the circle and bring everybody in. Let's start with planning, with the city council or anybody else and staff. Not afraid. And we'll take whatever was said forward, but let's do it together. Thank you.
And with that note, how could they include tardiness and attendance if we just got this little thing, which was wrong the first time, this month? So how could the city council even validate our attendance and tardiness and what have you if I had nothing in front of me? But anyways, let's move on. Is there any public comments, Norma? Hand raised?
Yes, Chair, we do have a hand raised. And for those that don't have their hand raised, if you wish to speak on this item, please use the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. In the meantime, Wanda, I'm bringing you into the meeting. If you unmute yourself, your 3-minute timer will start.
Thank you for hearing me again. This is a public meeting. Item 5B is open letter to the Planning Commission from the City Council. And I can't believe you started discussing this without reading the letter to the public. You guys, this is a public meeting. The public doesn't know what's going on. I didn't know about this letter. I only knew about this meeting this morning. So I didn't get a chance to read the packet if there was a packet.
Oh.
I think that the city council should have discussed this with the individual. And then let's just be honest, we're not kids, name the names. I'm just really honestly fed up with all this. And I just have to say, I was on planning commission for 10 years. I worked hard. I worked hard on the sign ordinance. We spent hours working on that. I want to see it enforced. You don't get to pick and choose which ordinances we follow. But getting back to eligibility for planning commissioners, item 23-110, qualifications. Members of the planning commission shall be residents and registered voters of the city of San Juan Bautista and shall not be blah, blah, blah. A commissioner who has moved residents from the city shall be considered to have resigned from the commission office. Okay, is there anything else you guys want to tell us? Tell the public? Let's just stop pussyfooting around the facts and just be transparent. You can talk about it, but you're not doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda Goubert. I agree with you. I want to be as transparent as possible, but when you're not given correct information, I'm not going to give any wrong information. And I know Jackie always says, let's bring in the community. And could we have an ad hoc to speak to the lawyer about this prior to, remember we talked about this, Brian?
Mayor, before we continue on to questions, we did have someone enter the meeting
Oh, okay.
during public comment, so I would like to at least offer that opportunity for this
Okay.
member to speak. Is that okay?
Yeah, fine.
Okay, so we do have an addition to the public attendance. I see that you've joined us by phone. If you would like to speak on the matter that we are speaking to, which is item 5B, open letter to the Planning Commission from the City Council, please raise your hand by pressing *9. And then I will let you into the meeting and you can unmute yourself by pressing *6. But at this time, you did raise your hand here, so I'm going to bring you into the meeting. And then as this is going through, once you are in the meeting, if you press *6, please, and that will unmute you and your 3-minute timer will begin. You are in the meeting, but you are muted, so please unmute yourself by pressing *6. There you go, you're unmuted, your 3-minute timer will begin.
I don't need 3 minutes. I just wanted to say hello to everyone. And this is Dan DeVries here, and I just wanted to say that I'm here to help in any way that I can.
Thank you, Dan.
And so at this time, if there's anyone else that would like to speak in the public here, if you raise your hand by using the raise hand button at the bottom of the screen, and I'll bring you in. And at this time, Chair, we have no additional hands. Thank you for allowing the opportunity for that person who joined us.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to advise the commission just for a moment. Earlier as we introduced this item, I mentioned that in order to do anything about the open letter, that you needed to have an item on the agenda as an action item. And that does not include the direction or the appointment of an ad hoc committee to evaluate a response, the character of your response, and then to advise the commission in the future about what that response should look like. And the methodology, the venue, the approach, and so forth, the method of communication. All of that is fair game for advice from an ad hoc committee that you can appoint this evening. So you don't have to wait a month to do that. That's not considered an action of the commission.
So Brian, you're saying I can request an ad hoc committee to talk about this open letter?
Yes, you can direct 2 members to come back to the commission in your next meeting with a recommendation to you for how to address the open letter.
I would like to appoint Commissioner Maderos, if you're willing to be on this ad hoc.
Yes.
And Vice Chair Morris Lopez, if you'd like to be on the ad hoc.
Yes, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. And I would like a report on this or the way to navigate this and place it on the action item next meeting, Brian?
Chair Delgado, I think you need to make a motion. Somebody needs to make a motion to appoint these two
Even though this
members
is not
to
an
the
action item?
committee.
This is not an action item. Motions cannot be made. So direction can be provided just as done,
Okay,
but as a non-agenda action item, we
Good enough.
move forward as stated.
Yeah, we're gonna ask for agenda.
thank you, Norma.
On the agenda.
You're welcome. That's why we're here. Takes a
Thank
village.
Okay. Is there any more comments with thank you, Commissioner Maderos and Vice Chair Morris for taking that on. Thank you.
I already
Okay.
have a plan. I'll share it with you.
Okay.
I'll fix it.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to discussion item, Planning Commission attendance, 5C. And that's in the back of the packet. And does anybody, well, I have concerns with this attendance report that was given to us. Brian, do you have anything to say about the attendance report on 5C?
You muted.
I know that Trish went back into the record and prepared this report for the previous 6 months, and it's a matter of record. It shows that in November there was one absence. Liz McChain was absent in November. In December there was full attendance. No meeting in January. February there was full attendance. March full attendance, and then no meeting in April, and in May there was an excused absence.
Okay.
Even despite the fact that in May we had that technical glitch with respect to Zoom.
Yeah.
You know, so there was really no meeting at that point.
Well, it's incorrect, but David, Commissioner Maderos, do you have anything to say about the attendance?
No.
Commissioner McChain?
No, actually, but as I told you, everything is safe.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Morris Lopez?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I have a lot to say about this item. I too went back and looked at the prepared report. There was numerous inconsistencies. I went back and I looked at the meetings manually that were on the city's website. And as Brian just stated, there were a lot of canceled meetings, but I tried my best to get through the ones that were uploaded onto the webpage. I think for clarity, there should also be an entry when a meeting has been canceled, because when you try to go back to that website and look at the meetings for the calendar year, it should indicate to the public that there is a canceled meeting for that month, as well as having a special meeting noted on there. So it's really difficult to get an accurate count, but I can tell you that it listed me as being absent twice, and I have not missed a single meeting. And I think the problem with that is that sometimes I have signed on with the telephone number, my phone number, so I don't know that that gets recorded. So there's a lot of inconsistencies. And in that same section of the city ordinance that is referring to the commission and how we operate, and we can assume that that's our bylaws for now, it does state that any absent commissioner or HRB member, that absence needs to be recorded and it needs to be immediately provided to the chair. So the chairs of our boards respectively are the HRB, which would be Chair David Maderos. For the Planning Commission, it would be Chair Yolanda Delgado. And I have to ask you, did either one of you, were you alerted formally by the secretary that any of the membership was absent? Can you answer that for me for the public as well? Did either one of you get notification?
No.
How about you, Chair Maderos?
Yeah.
Okay, so then that states that the second question is you were not aware whether these absences were excused or not, correct? Correct?
Brian?
No, I'm asking you, Chair.
Oh,
Dunn.
yeah, correct. There's I mean, I sent an email to Trish so we can go over it. So I can see if it's,
Chair, I'm not done with my comment. I'm
okay,
sorry.
go ahead.
So then I can assume also, Chair Maderos, you did not get notification that this was an excused absence?
Are you talking about advance notification or during the meeting? Because most of the time, wait a minute, I'm trying to be fair with everybody.
Okay.
During the meetings, we are notified whether they're excused or not. And that's being recorded. I know that.
No,
Now, whether I got advance notice prior to the meeting, no.
yeah, you're supposed to get notice prior, and I'm assuming after, if there's some excuse that was submitted. So neither one of you were
I
notified
know.
formally, okay? That's in our ordinance. And I have to say that that again is very upsetting to me because the city council wrote this open letter, you know, alleging that we do not follow rules, that we are unruly. You want to just give us that sentiment, but yet, you know, we, no fault of our own, we haven't had great support for the way these meetings have been run. Okay, that's the technicality there. That's something that's in a written ordinance and it's not been followed. And in that ordinance as well, it says that if you do get an excused absence, it's up to the chair of the planning commission. It doesn't talk or speak to the HRB chair, but it does speak to the planning commission chair, that once you are submitted and do have the knowledge that it was an excused absence, you have to look at that excuse and you have to determine whether or not that excuse, and I can read it verbatim in the pile of papers I have, whether that excuse is consistent with anyone else on the commission, that would be an acceptable excuse or a common excuse that anyone would use. So there's a process of this, you know, and I can say that this is really bothersome to me because at some point in time over the last 12 months or 18 months that I've been here, 15 months, there may have been some valid unexcused absences that we did not go through the process, which then invalidates our votes. And that's very concerning to me. And I think the public needs to know that. And we need to move forward with that. We need to make that correction now.
Thank you, Commissioner Vice Chair. David? Commissioner David?
I just want to say that the reason why I didn't say anything about attendance, I'm figuring the ad hoc committee will deal with that and present that as well.
Okay.
So when I say I have a plan, I have some solutions and what have you, I'd like to enter that as we go forward.
Yeah.
And if I do that, it'll be in front of city council.
Right. It's for discussion tonight though. And so,
Yeah, I understand. But I just want to explain why I didn't say anything because I figured, hey, we're going to deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Maderos and Vice Chair Morris Lopez and Commissioner McChain. I would like to make a clarification on the attendance that was given to me, and I emailed Trish twice about this. Commissioner McChain did not attend the May meeting to the super, and it's indicated that he was there, and I'm not picking on Commissioner McChain. How valid is the track record of Trish? And also, you have a double asterisk meeting canceled because of technicalities. The meeting was not canceled to order or roll call. And on the top of May 22, that is incorrect. That should not, those double asterisks should not be there. And this is what I'm saying. We need correct information to go smoothly and proceed smoothly. And I've emailed Trish about this and no response. And that's another thing that I really don't like, when I don't got your mail, thanks. Look into it, thanks. Not even that. So with that, is there any public comment? Norma?
At this time, if anyone who has joined the meeting tonight would like to speak on this matter, please use the raised hand button on the bottom of your screen. Or for those that have called in, press *9, and that will raise your hand. We don't have any hands raised at this time, Chair.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to the next 5E, short-term rentals. Could you update us on that, please, Brian?
Yes, we do have one completed short-term rental, and we're processing another. You know, so that's the full extent of short-term rental compliance at this point. And we have inquired with our search engine consultant regarding the volume of notifications that we receive, and they are accessing hundreds of websites. So, you know, we're doing the best we can to identify where they are. If they're not on the platforms, then we don't know that they are short-term rentals. And so, not sure what else we can do to identify where they are, except to rely on people to tell us, and then usually people don't want to do that. So, because their neighbors involved, and that of course is a problem. But sometimes, if we do get a notification via code enforcement, then we will reach out. That hasn't happened yet, despite the fact that we have had this on the books for quite a while. So that's the update. Not a lot of great news there. Shall I just go through the list? 5E, accessory dwelling unit update. We're only processing.
We probably need to have the opportunity for the public to speak on 5D before moving to 5E, if
Okay.
that is the wish of the commission.
Yeah.
Chair, you're muted.
Chair. She's muted.
Yeah, but I do have to say, Brian, that was a pretty fast report. That was good.
Brian, I just went on Airbnb, and you didn't pay me $40,000, and I found 8 short-term rentals on the website. So, I mean, we could do that, and we can go into other things. There's more than one in the city, and that's my concern. So, Commissioner, let me ask if the commissioners have any, but we're paying a company $40,000 to do this.
Just in response to that, several of the ones that you see on the website, if you're just looking at Airbnb, for example, those are hotel units. Some of them are hotel units. So you have to take that into consideration. We're not going to go after them when we're already paying to it. So.
Okay. Commissioner Medeiros, do you have anything? Comments?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner McChain?
No, I'm okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Morris Lopez?
Yes, thank you. So Brian, what was the total number that you have, that the company or this research company that we're paying, what was the total number they came up with?
I think there's 7 active, and a couple of those are hotels. And so there are a total of 4 short-term rental units that we have that we're working with, one downtown and a couple, you know, in the neighborhood. So
Now I can click off right now 3 next to me on Mission Street. And
they've applied actually.
yeah, and then the one above Daisy's owner, there's our Airbnb up there.
Yes, she has an issued permit.
Okay, great. And so that means when an issued permit for the public and for myself, the commissioners, that means that they've paid a ministerial amount of permitting fee. Is that correct?
Yeah, what happens with short-term rental applications is that they, you know, everybody that operates a short-term rental in San Juan Bautista doesn't need us to give them a permit in order to be required to pay a tax. But acknowledgement that we know it's a short-term rental is achieved through the permit. So when we ask them to get a permit and they get one, then they know they're on the hook to pay taxes, and we have them in the system. So the permit consists of an application, and it consists of a building inspection to make sure they're complying with residential building code, safety requirements, and fire code requirements. And then once those are cleared, we issue the short-term rental permit. They're obligated then as soon as they submit an application, and we know that they're a short-term rental in operation, we've accepted their application, they are required to start paying transient occupancy tax fees because we know that they're there. We require them to pay the TOT tax, which is 12% of receipts, in the month. Usually it takes us about a month to process. So in the month during the time that their application is being processed, and then subsequently every month thereafter. And then we have a spreadsheet that we maintain regarding transient occupancy tax payors. I'm not sure which one. Anyway, people that pay the transient occupancy tax are on that sheet, so we do know when they're not paying.
So is the tax the same for any sized unit, like one, it doesn't matter how big the unit is?
Yeah, the tax is the same for hotels and Airbnbs.
Okay. And also you said inspection, does that include the fire marshal?
But fire inspection and building inspection are both required to be passed.
Okay.
And there's a form, it's a pass-fail form. They either pass or if they fail, they have to correct whatever deficiency exists. They can't, and for example, if the rooms are too small or they have accessibility problems, they don't get the permit.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Morris Lopez. Thank you, Brian. Could you send us a total to all the commissioners and the addresses that you said about the 7 or 4 that are active?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to action item 5E.
Sorry, Chair, we do have public comment.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's been a long time, that's, like I said, but we're all here for each other for. So I do have someone who has raised their hand to speak. I'm going to bring that person in. And then you are the caller here, Dan DeVries. When you are in now, if you unmute yourself by pressing *6, then your 3-minute timer will start. There you go. You are ready to go.
I am unmuted. It's not often that I'm unmuted. I got to tell you guys. Hey, Brian, I have a question for you. So you kind of took some of the question out of my mind when you said that the TOT is going to be collected on these short-term rentals, correct? Brian, can you hear me?
Yeah, through the chair, yes.
So TOT, and that's 12% into the general fund, right?
Correct.
Okay, and what's the mechanism, just out of curiosity, since this is a public meeting and I'm a member of the public these days, what's the mechanism of enforcement for that? How do we know if somebody, like I could rent my house out on Airbnb, how does the city know if someone is renting their house out and collecting this money? Is it an honor system based upon self-reporting by the homeowners or the property owners? Do we have any kind of oversight on this? And if so, what does it consist of? I'm really interested in that.
Yeah, the chair is okay with me engaging with Mr. DeVries. I'll be happy to answer all his questions.
So I'm going to pause the time for just a second here and explain a little of the procedure. Sorry, Dan, if you have any further questions, if you can ask all your questions and provide your full 3-minute testimony. And then at that point, the chair can decide on engagement. That way we ensure that the speaker gets their fair 3-minute time and staff isn't taking up their 3 minutes in the engagement. Does that sound like fair? I want to make sure that Dan gets his full 3 minutes.
Yeah, no, that sounds totally fair. I'm done with my 3 minutes. I just had these questions that I think these questions are questions that the community wants to know, Brian. So, and I don't think Yolanda has a problem with them. Do you, Yolanda? I'll take that as a no.
No, I'm trying
So,
to, no, I don't need to answer you, but I just want things on the up and up. I want our taxes collected. I want things to be safe. I want them inspected. I can't prevent them from not being present there. So
no,
I can't say no. I can't say yes. It is what it is, but I want them legally validated. And I would like for our taxes, them to pay us taxes. With that, do you have any more questions?
yeah. Besides the one I posed, no. But yeah, Yolanda, we all want that. Everyone who lives here wants that. And if there's people renting out their houses for short-term rentals, they need to pay TOT, at which Brian just confirmed is 12%, right into the general fund, like adrenaline. That's a great thing for the city, and we have to be cognizant of that. And so my question to him was, through the chair, is how are we determining whether people are renting their houses out? What's the enforcement mechanism on that? And I think you as the chair would want to be interested in that answered also, right?
Yes, I am. And Brian and I have gone back and forth with this for some time. And they hired somebody to find out who is actually searching in all the websites for us. So, yes.
That's fantastic. But Yolanda, that's why they call us a public meeting, because me, a member of the public, don't know that. And now's the opportunity for you and Brian to explain, yes, we're on top of that issue. People secretly renting out their homes, and here's what we're doing about it. Now's your chance to shine. And I can't wait to hear it.
Okay.
Thank you so much, sir. Your 3 minutes has come up.
Okay. Commissioner McChain, do you have a rebut? Is there any more in the public?
Oh, why this is not stopping. I apologize.
Is there a question that needs to be answered still? I'm not sure. I thought I explained earlier, prior to the last comment, that we don't have the capability to independently drive around and look for short-term rentals. There's no way that we have knowing that. We could look at water use records. We could look at garbage, put the garbage out on the off day and do an inspection, or some code enforcement can look into it. But the most efficient way that we have is to hire a firm to crawl the websites, and there are hundreds and hundreds of websites that they crawl, and and we can't do better than that unless we have some other evidence that they're short-term rentals. And if we do, then we'll have code enforcement look into it. But when we do see those on the report that we get monthly on firm that we hired, which is Granicus. Some jurisdictions hire Granicus to do their complete Airbnb and transient occupancy tax collection and approval process. We don't. We just want the addresses, and then we'll follow up because we're not that big, and we're not going to have Airbnb collect taxes for us. We'll collect taxes ourselves. People can give us a monthly check, which they do. So I explained that previously, and that hasn't changed since my last explanation.
Chair, this is Vice Chair. I have one last question.
Well, Commissioner, Vice Chair Morris Lopez, Commissioner McChain had his hand risen first, and then I'll come back to you, okay?
All right, thank you very much.
Commissioner McChain, do you have
yes. I have a question. Are we taxing based on Airbnb only?
No.
Or is the different platforms?
Yes.
Okay.
Many platforms.
Okay. Long term, short term is based on less of 6 months. Is correct?
No, less than 30 days.
Less than 30 days.
Yes.
Okay. As I know, there are some people that rent more than 30 days using Airbnb. Are we taxing those people?
No,
No? So those people are exempt of paying the city tax?
yes, the short-term rentals in San Juan Bautista, like most other jurisdictions, is 30 days or less, and that's by ordinance.
Okay. Okay. And how are we tracking the short term?
Excuse me?
How are we tracking the short terms?
We're tracking them through the company that we've hired to identify addresses. Once they've identified an address, we look into it, contact the owner via the information that we get from the service, which is pretty complete, by the way. We have contact information. We know how many stays within the past year. We know what the frequency of stays is, and we know what the duration is. We know whether they're active or inactive, and we have good information from the service. We just don't have great numbers.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Commissioner Machain. Vice Chair Morris Lopez, do you have anything to comment on that?
I have further question. So I'm sitting here thinking about what Brian said, that the numbers aren't great. So you're using Airbnb. I'm sure you may be using even Facebook, just various different modalities or platforms. But one other thing I'm thinking about is, what about the ADUs or the granny units that have come through town with the 2 housing developments? Is anyone checked into those? Because as Mr. DeRee stated, there may be individuals that are renting out their homes, and I'm thinking, well, maybe that is an easy way to rent out an ADU or a granny house quite under the radar. Has anyone checked into those units? And then also, I think the public and myself, I know where some are, but I think we need to have full disclosure, and we should know where these Airbnb short-term rentals are, just like we know where the Posada is, where Liel is. We should have a list of those. It should be a public knowledge.
Sure. We have a record of permits, so people can know where those are.
I asked Brian to give us the numbers and the places earlier, Vice Chair Morris Lopez, and he said he would do that. So you'll send us all out the information, Brian, on that?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Moving on to...
May I introduce a little bit in here about the ADUs?
We're going to talk about those next, Luis.
Okay.
Commissioner Jane. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Go ahead, Brian, with the next one with the ADUs.
Okay, well, I've only processed a building permit in the past, few months for only one ADU, and so the number, it's similar to there may be ADUs that were grandfathered in before our permit requirements were there, and there may be some ADUs that exist, like we covered this during the review of the ordinance we recently adopted. There may be many ADUs that are under the radar, and we just don't know that they're there until they apply for a building permit for some electrical connection or plumbing connection or something, where we, flag that there's an extra unit there that we can categorize it. The city had a previous second residential unit ordinance, and even though we have a new ordinance, that ordinance was in effect, and so we just don't know unless we have some evidence that somebody has an ADU that they're building that requires a building permit. And then for the purpose of the subdivisions that were built with ADUs in them, we don't know. It's true. They could be renting those under the radar. Our ordinance prohibits the use of ADUs for short-term rentals, just outright. It's not legal. So if we do see those ADUs being used for short-term rentals, we would do code enforcement action.
Okay. Commissioner Meleros, do you have any comments, questions, or concerns?
Yeah, a couple of questions. What do you mean by grandfathered in ADUs? And what do you mean by permitted ADUs?
Well, grandfathered ADUs would be any ADU that exists prior to the adoption of legally exists prior to the adoption of any ordinance prohibiting them. And when I say grandfathered ADUs, and maybe I misspoke and misused that term. What I meant was ADUs that don't currently comply with building codes or various building codes. Our ordinance allows us to provide amnesty to, regardless of how they were established. That is provided that they comply with health and safety codes, building codes. So we do have an opportunity for people to become legal and not have to go through any other discretionary process, just for the purpose of making sure that we have structures that aren't, going to cause, extraordinary problems in the neighborhood. So.
Okay, my other question was, what is permitted ADUs?
Well, permitted second residential units under the previous ordinance, or permitted ADUs under our current ordinance would be.
Okay, so the grandfather ones that could be found out in the near future, they could be permitted.
Yeah, if units were built under the previous ordinance, let's say, for example, they were built and there wasn't any under the second residential unit ordinance, and there was no requirement, I'm just going to say this, and there was no requirement for them to have consistent materials and colors with the main structure. Then we wouldn't go back and make them
Got it.
Have consistent materials and colors. They would be considered grandfathered in. That's an example. If they were legal at the time they were built, then they'd be considered grandfathered. Or I think the appropriate term is non-conforming.
Yeah. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Maderos. Commissioner Machain, do you have any comments, questions, or concerns?
Yeah, just coming back a little bit about the idea to avoid using the ADUs with as a short rental or short-term rental units. I don't know. Well, I don't know. I think the city is not using the mechanism, but did well, it's named. It's a deed that prohibit the owner to use to use the unit as short-term rental.
Oh, you mean there's a deed restriction?
Yes, the deed is correct. The deed restriction. I recommend to use the the deed restriction, and we can avoid the short-term rental.
Yes, that's a good point.
Yeah. That was my comment about the ADUs.
Thank you, Commissioner Machain. Vice Chair Morris Lopez, do you have any comments, concerns?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Brian, have we have no number of how many ADUs we have there, correct?
No. I mean, there could be a lot of ADUs. We're just not, we're not. We just don't know the ones that aren't permitted.
Can we send a letter out via the water bills indicating you have so much time to come forth and get it resolved? And then after that, say you'll be fined after that? I mean, it's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, we can talk about mechanisms to entice people or require people. My feeling is that if there's a way that we can encourage people and provide an incentive to people, like what we did in the ordinance, which is to provide an amnesty avenue, that would be a better approach.
Well, if you send out a general letter indicating that the incentive is your grandfather, just like what the ordinance says, give them the ordinance, and that would be an incentive. But after so many days, they'll get fined. I mean, we need a real count for our arena. I mean, this can stop the building of homes. I've said this when we had this problem. I even think before you were here. We need to find how many ADUs we have to make safety for one. For if someone has an ADU, and they say they call 911 and they don't know it's an ADU. That's for safety, police, and our count. Yeah, this is why I talk to you about this over and over. And we need to stop talking, and I need something done. And I think the letter of giving them amnesty because of the ADU new law, say they'll give you, we have that program, and we need to emphasize this, and we cannot sit on this anymore. It needs to be done.
And
thank you.
Talk with John about that.
May I introduce a little bit here again? One good thing, I think, to encourage the owners that have illegal construction or illegal ADUs is this because they are increasing living area. So this is a good thing for them because it's increasing living area. They're increasing the value of their properties. So I think it's a good thing to encourage these people to declare the illegal constructions. So it's not bad for them.
I agree.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Machain. Yes. So I would like a discussion item on this next meeting. Brian, or a letter sent out or something. It's how long have you been here? A year, and I've been talking to you about this for over a year. Something needs to be done. Norma, is there anybody with the public that has their hand up?
I do, Chair, have a citizen with a hand raised.
Okay.
Dan DeVries, I'm bringing you in. If you press *6 to unmute yourself, your 3-minute timer will start. And again, there you go, you're unmuted.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can. So I'll start your 3-minute timer right now.
I'm not going to need 3 minutes. I just wanted to tell you that I read the letter from the city council to you, and I know that had to sting a little bit. I'm not sure about the background that led up to the writing of the letter and all that stuff, but I want to tell you guys that you, my friends, I think you're conducting this meeting in a very good way with a lot of decorum and a lot of awesomeness. Brian, I think you're doing a good job. Staff, I think you're doing a good job. Planning commissioners, I think you're doing a good job. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of confidence or fortitude going forward with this letter that was sent to you by the council, which I didn't know about, by the way, but I think you guys are doing a good job of fostering public comment. That's what it's all about, public comment. All of us are members of a community. All of us are members of a community. It's the community's will that needs to be done. Not any of ours, not any of our individual proclivities, the community. And I think you guys are fostering a good public conversation right now. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much, Dan.
Thank you, Dan DeVries. Is there anybody else, Norma?
Mayor, we do not have any other hands raised at this time.
Okay. Brian, the next one is 5F.
Yeah, since your last meeting, I have talked with building inspection and fire about an inspection schedule for the parklets, and we're going to start that. These are no fee inspections, and so the parklet owners can be encouraged by that. These are just simply walk-through safety inspections to make sure that there isn't anything that's not in compliance. And you mentioned inoperable or hazardous appliances or accessories like umbrellas don't work in that kind of thing. So those things will be evaluated. So just want to let you know that I have talked with building inspection and fire marshal.
Okay, is code enforcement also going to be included with this? Is that not his, on his?
No. No, this really isn't a code enforcement issue. This is just really simply whether people are complying with their encroachment permit requirements for the most part. And okay. that isn't even, city engineer isn't even involved. It's just simply, if there's a public works issue because these are in the street, that'll be up to Nick to address. And so just really three people: fire marshal, building official, and public works inspection as needed.
Okay. Commissioner McChain, do you have any comments, questions, or concerns?
No, I'm okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McChain. Commissioner Maderos, do you have any comments, questions, or concerns?
No, thank you.
Good. Vice Chair Jack Morris Lopez.
Thank you, Chair Delgado. Yeah, I agree. I think we brought this up and we discussed it. I think it's a good thing. The public, probably would be interested and appreciative if we could have oversight, because it's not enough to approve a project or an item and the parklets and then just forget about it. We're almost 2 years into COVID. So I think it's a very good idea that we go back and make sure that things are safe, make sure that there's, that they're per the permitting guidelines. For instance, if there is specific specifications on the actual build out of the parklet, we want to make sure when you go back, not just safety issues, but whether or not they've added maybe a flagpole or they've added some other structure that takes away from that original specifications. I think that needs to be looked at as well. And I know there's been a lot of talk about signage. I think we also need to be really careful and cautious. And if there are huge flags and banners, that's not in our purview. Our ordinance speaks against that sort of signage.
Yes.
I think that the parklets fall under that ordinance as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, Vice Chair Morris Lopez. Go ahead, Brian.
Understands. Yeah, I'm sorry. The commission understands the action of the city council on parklets is to allow the parklets to remain with no new parklets. Can't be expanded. And I suppose if one parklet disappears and another parklet takes its place, that might be consistent with that. But no new parklets, generally speaking, and then up until the time the Third Street Master Plan the construction starts, and so they'll be there for quite some time.
Thank you, Brian. I disagree with you on some of the factors of the parklets. Some of them have fluorescent lights. We've gone through this. It's in the city ordinance, no fluorescent lights. Code enforcement should be citing the businesses that have fluorescent lights. The businesses that have the flags, the waving flags or the blow up dolls. We need to have order because it's already in our ordinance. the problem. I still see the fluorescent lights. There was only, I believe, the market at the end, and there was another one that was explained to us that was able to have a fluorescent light because it's historical. I can't remember right now, but we need to enforce the banners. Get, no banners, no fluorescent lights, no neon lights, none of this. It's in our ordinance. We don't need to reinvent the wheel and have a discussion on that. And some of those parklets have that on there, and some of the businesses have it in their windows, with showing the time that they're open. I can tell you one offhand, but we need to have the fluorescents and neons and the flags and signs that are not allowed in our city because it is a historical city. I have no further comments. Norma, is there any hands raised?
We do, Chair, have a hand raised. Wanda, I'm bringing you in. If you unmute yourself, your 3-minute timer will begin.
Thank you. I just have one quick comment. Brian, you said no new parklets, generally speaking. I'm not sure what that means. I understand that Bliss Blends has been issued a permit. I hope that they won't be building a permit. I really don't think it would be in their best financial interest to do so. So can you please elaborate on that? Thank you.
Sure. Bliss Blends, two parklets were allowed since the time the new guidelines were put in place. They were approved prior to the adoption of the new guidelines. And so those encroachment permits were issued. And Bliss Blends is one of those two. And their encroachment permit is still active. And their approval to build a parklet is still available to them. They just haven't done it. I don't know why.
If anyone else in the public would like to speak on this matter, please raise your hand by pressing the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen, or press *9, and that will raise your hand. Chair, we have no other members of the public raising their hand at this time.
Thank you, Norma.
Yeah.
The next one is the Planning Commission material binder.
I'm sorry, Chair. We do have, Dan, did you want to speak on this matter? I know that your raising hand takes a little bit longer, so I apologize. I didn't give enough time. Yes, he did raise his hand, Chair.
Okay.
Is it okay to give him this time?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. As a call in, sometimes it does have a little bit more of a pause. So Dan, we're just waiting for you to unmute your phone as you have been brought into the meeting, and then your 3-minute timer will start. And I appreciate the commission's patience with me and in that. Oops, there. Still have not unmuted yourself yet. *6. Dan, you're still muted. If you press *6, we've had success earlier tonight. So what I'm going to do is put Dan back into the audience because Wanda did raise her hand back, and I do want to point out that Wanda did have 2 minutes and 36 seconds left. But as we had spoken earlier, I thought she was done. So I apologize, okay. Wanda. If you still have some questions or not, I will reset the timer to 2 minutes and 36 seconds.
I think that you're speaking to me, Norma. The only comment I have to make is I want to thank you very much for your professionalism. I really appreciate your being there and handling everything so well. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you. You're very welcome. And I really truly didn't mean to cut you off early.
No, that's fine. I was done. Thank you.
Okay, so Dan, I'm going to bring you back in. We're going to try one more time here. You are in the meeting. If you unmute yourself with a *6. Still muted. We're trying really hard, Dan. There you go. You're unmuted.
I know. Am I there?
You are here.
Yes.
I will start your 3-minute timer.
Well, okay. Well, just you can hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. Well, I just want to echo the comments of the last speaker who said that your professionalism is unparalleled. I've been doing stuff in this city for 32 years, and this is really awesome to see this level of professionalism. So thank you for that. As regards the parklets, that's an issue, isn't it? And I get a lot of phone calls all the time from people. And it seems like the biggest problem that people have is Mrs. B's parklet. Not parklets in general, Mrs. B's parklet, because it's too big and it's too long and it's not a hospitality, restaurant, cafe type use. So that's the one that you need to focus on. Why was it given to her? I don't know. And I've told everyone who's called me, once you give something to someone, it's freaking damn hard to take it away. And I don't know if it was Liz Turner, Liz whomever, that gave that parklet to Mrs. B. But now that she has it, now that she and Dante have it, it's going to be really hard to take it away. So, therefore, where are we on this thing? With the parklets, I think that there is a better design, because if you look at the cafes in Europe, they're beautiful and everyone sits outside. The problem with our 3rd Street cafes is the crown in the road. So if we want to get rid of these wooden boxes out on 3rd Street, we have to come up with an idea of how to do that without to where people can still sit out there, but with the retail aspect of it, that's something that the city's going to have to decide upon. And who knows why a parklet was given to Dante and Mrs. B of that much space, but that's what you guys are facing right now. I'm only issue spotting. That's the issue.
Dan, you have 20 seconds if you wouldn't mind closing up.
I'm done.
Okay, thank you. And anyone else who would like to speak tonight, please raise your hand by pressing the raise hand button in the bottom of your screen. Chair, no additional hands have been raised at this time.
Thank you, Norma.
Stop.
Vice Chair Morris Lopez, your hand's raised.
Yes, I feel it's fairly imperative that I make a comment after Mr. DeVries's comment, because once again, it's like the elephant in the room, and I'm speaking from the community's perspective. And yes, we all bring our own proclivities, as Mr. DeVries said. And that was my question from the onset about the parklets. The parklets were meant to be an extra way, a special help to the restaurants. And because of COVID, we couldn't have people eating in an enclosed space because of the nature of how the virus is spread. It's still spreading the same way. And so my question and my concern always has been, why was retail allowed to have the parklet? And he's right, because I get a lot of phone calls and a lot of questions and a lot of complaints. I don't get a lot of positive feedback about the Mrs. B's parklets. And there's her parklet and her adjoining relatives' parklets, and everybody brings that to my attention. And since Dan opened up the conversation, I'm going to go ahead and add to it as a planning commissioner, which is representing the silent people that can't be here or choose not to be here. And so I brought it up a long time ago as a commissioner, and I was slapped down by another commissioner saying that it was discrimination. Well, I don't think it's discrimination against retail people, because it was never intended as a retail resolve to deal with COVID. It was for eateries only. And as you know, we have a few eateries that also have access to outside dining or outside entertainment. So those, to me, also come under scrutiny, like Doña Esther's and also the 18th Barrel. They have outside areas where they can provide drink and food to their customers. So that to me was, but then it went under, the guide of it being an eatery, but they also have the luxury of having outdoor spaces where Anaka didn't, Mission Cafe didn't, and there's a little glitch with that one. The parklets were to be on the frontage road, on the front of the building, not up the side. And they have a lot of parklet space up the side, which cuts out about a good 3 to 4 car spaces on that one-way street. So, the take-home message for me is that we need to adhere to ordinances. We need to adhere to being fair across the board, because then we have the appearance of having nepotism, favoritism, whatever you want to call it. And I'll wrap up my conversation is that the staff person that perhaps Mr. DeVries said allowed this, they're no longer a staff person, and that shouldn't be a good enough excuse for not dealing with the issues. That's kind of being cowardice, because then it's the constant undertone of conversation that why are these allowed? Who did it? We all know who did it. We all know that these were for restaurants, and the majority of the largest ones downtown are not eateries. And we need to deal with it. We need to talk about it. And I disagree with Mr. DeVries that on this point only, that you can take them down. If the public says we don't want those, that is a public street. That is our right of way. And it's been taken away. And we'll have to see what's going on with COVID through the end of the year. But I think we need to tackle this honestly and fairly for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Morris Lopez. I don't have a comment of the parklets. I just want them safe, sound, and, I have mixed feelings, but I just want them safe and moving forward. With that, Brian, the next topic is the Planning Commission material binders.
Yes, I'm going to defer to Commissioner Morris Lopez on this. That's okay.
Yes, thank you, Brian. I appreciate
sure.
it. Yeah, I appreciate it. You need to rest your voice. You're on the beginnings of laryngitis. So anyway, I had spoken to Brian, Assistant City Manager, about this idea. And I'm speaking from my personal experience. I'm sitting here at a very large desk. I'm actually zooming in from San Luis Obispo, or SLO. I'm doing an out of the area job at a clinic here for SLO County Employees Sheriff Division. And so I have a nice big desk here in this hotel room, but normally at home I'm really cramped. I'm scrambling to get my papers organized. So I thought, why not a binder that we could have? And what I understand is that the City Council has a binder, and every month they are given their packets. I don't know if they pick up the binder at the office, City Hall, and they have the inserts inserted with the agenda, the packet information, and it's all set in a divided area. You go to the meeting, you zoom in, we're still zooming in, and you follow along. And it's very easy. And I think that one thing I think is that we can have a calendar at the beginning of the binder. It can have the projected regular meetings. If we have to do any amending or any redacting, we can write on that calendar, and everything's in one place. And also part of that binder, we need a toolkit. One thing that I think is very essential that we all have is a copy of the general plan. That is our Bible. As planning commissioners, we are here to implement policy, and that's policy and concerns of in regards to land use, zoning. So if we don't have that as a guide, how are we going to do our job? How are we going to do a more than adequate job? Because every now and then I jump on my laptop, and trust me, I don't want to download all of that information onto my personal laptop. I have so much memory on it. I just prefer not to. So I think a hard copy for each commissioner would be in that binder as our toolkit, as well as the city ordinances. maybe, so everything is in old-fashioned print form so that we can look at it. But I think it's very critical to have that general plan and to have the divided sections for each monthly meeting. And so I just wanted to discuss it. But I really think that, it should be an action thing, that it's done. We can't call it an action item. It should just happen. We need to make it happen for us. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Luis Machain, do you have anything to say about that? Comments, questions, or concerns?
No, I think I said my comments last time about, we talked about the parklets, and I think I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Maderos?
Yeah, it sounds like we have another item for the open letter ad hoc committee. When
Yes.
it comes to a training manual or training, or it's getting long in the day, folks. When it comes to material for the planning commission, I think that's something we can bring up during that committee.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jackie, do you want to comment on your presentation?
Yeah, I really don't think this is dependent on a conversation with the planning commission. This is specific to us and how we can do our best, fulfill our role. And we need the toolkit. I think we really need to just get it.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair. I agree with you, David. We used to get a binder, and Trish would put it in front of us when we used to have it. Do you remember? And send it to us and give us more notice of what was going on. So I do agree with Vice Chair that we need a binder with tools.
And we could also do it.
Yes.
We could do both at the same time.
Correct.
Pardon me for interrupting.
Oh, no, it's fine. Any hands raised?
I lost a little bit, but yeah, I'm totally agree. I was hearing about what Jackie was talking about. Yeah, but yes, I totally love the idea about the binder. I think we need it. We need it.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Machain. Is there any hand raised, Norma?
Yes, Chair, thank you. Wanda, you have your hand raised. I'm bringing you in to speak. And in the meantime, if anyone else in attendance would like to speak, please feel free to raise your hand at any time by pressing the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. And Wanda, you are unmuted, and I'll start your 3-minute timer.
Thank you very much. I kind of thought I was done for the evening, but I have to agree with Commissioner Jackie Morris Lopez. When I was on HRB Planning Commission from 2006 to 2016, we had binders. Now I taught online, so I was used to computers and seeing work online, but I really appreciated the binder, being able to write notes in the margins, having certain items always available, like historic design guidelines, or we didn't have the general plan, but all those, there are tools that you need to be able to refer to. And so I would recommend that be available to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Guevara. Anyone else? Norma?
We do not have any other hands raised at this time.
With that, I would like to close the discussion items and go with comments of the Planning Commissioner. Luis Machain, Commissioner Machain, do you have any comments?
No comments, but just remember about the one that says about the binders. Yeah, actually I have my 2 binders. I still have 2 binders from my first position in 2006. I have that binder, and I still have it, and it's a good one. It's a good reference still.
Thank you, Commissioner Machain. Commissioner Maderos, any comments?
Yes, I have several. First of all, let me ask this question. Did we not, if for the next meeting, we are we going to put on the agenda further discussion on ADUs? Was that established?
I wanted some kind of letter sent out and numbers by next meeting. Yeah.
Is that going to be a follow-up on the next agenda or what? I mean, what are we doing there? Exactly. How do I support that?
I asked Brian to put that on he would put it on his informational projects. I would think it'd go under there.
Okay, so it's coming back to us on the agenda?
Yes, I requested that to be on there.
Okay, thank you. Also, about canceled meetings. If we're going to have a canceled meeting, I'm thinking that we all had an idea and shared an idea that why should we have canceled meetings other than it might be an opportunity to do something else. So I'm saying that in the event we have a canceled meeting, I think through each meeting that we have, that we, before we adjourn it, is that we set it up so that there will be something for the next meeting. And if it's going to be canceled, these are the items we want to discuss. That's my recommendation. So, so it looks like we're going to have a meeting next month based on some agenda items as we spoke today, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And Commissioner Maderos,
Yeah.
HR, if you want to talk to Brian and have an HR meeting, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, right. We're working on an open letter. You want to talk about HR? How about that open letter?
Okay.
Okay, and don't forget when I asked to speak before city council, and they all have to be present, I want legal there too.
Thank you.
That's what. Anyway, that's where I'm trying to work my way to that. The other thing too, I don't think we should do more. And I'm not saying we didn't do that in this meeting, but make sure before we close off any one item, we need to get back with staff for advice. We need to get more practice. And if legal's with us, get back with legal and say, hey, before we close this item, does legal have anything to say? Does staff have anything to say? I think we need to do more of that. Okay, also on the parklets, the most important thing about our parklets is that they're temporary. They're temporary. They were there for an emergency only. That is the one thing that we have to celebrate because it's very effective. It worked out great. It was wonderful. But the other thing is, it is not the permanent way we're going to go. We know that because when we do that, we have to have a whole new setup for that to establish that. And if it is with the 3rd Street upgrade that they're planning in the future, that's way in the future. But we still have to announce the fact that they are temporary and be careful, and that has to be foremost because we don't want to grandfather some of this stuff in. Because all of a sudden we have to. So that's one thing we got to keep out there all the time. Make sure that whoever has a parklet, it is temporary. It's only for emergency purposes, nothing else until further notice. And then the other thing is, the last thing I think I have here, let's see another. Okay. The other thing too, I'm a little bit surprised that we have a public meeting today and no one from city council attended.
No. Isn't Councilor John Freeman?
City council?
I'm sorry, I believe John Freeman, he has joined us tonight. He's city council, am I wrong?
Yes, he's he's council. Yes.
Public meeting, shouldn't he be on the webinar that we're on?
That, and I apologize, I somewhat apologize that I interrupted you because that, I think you're getting to a procedure thing that would be my failure.
No, should that have been announced earlier?
If that is the wish of this commission, then I should be doing that for future meetings. And so I apologize. That was my fault.
I think that would be important if it was a city council person. Yes.
Okay. And
Because we want to make sure we have transparency, please.
Transparency and recognition. It's respect for position. Absolutely. I will make note of that, Chair, as presiding officer. Definitely, Commissioner Medeiros, when you're chairing the historical resources, note taken by myself, note taken, Chair Delgado. I saw you shake your head. I will circle with legal on that as well, because there may be matters within the agenda that the council should not be recognized or necessarily be an active participant within the webinar. They are not a member of the commission. They are a council member, and it is very respectful to recognize them. So if it's okay, let me circle back with legal and staff on how really to address that, because especially for quasi-judicial matters is where that gets sensitive and ex parte contact.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, because a lot of times I attend city council meetings and I am a planning commissioner and I'm a board member. I try to make myself known.
Yes.
Kind of a thing. I think for that purpose only, that, hey, I'm not trying to listen in on something that, I might get back with you later on. But anyway, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
I think we're okay with that. Yes, please. Thank you. That's all I got. I think that's all I got. I got so many notes here. I don't know. I'm good right now. And by the way, let me just say that again, through the wonderful opportunities that Juan Bautista's staff has been able to afford me and the city itself to go to these training classes, I've witnessed where we have mock planning commission meetings that we as trainees are as part of the curriculum that we attend to. And let me tell you, compared to what I was subjected to in some of these training sessions, this planning commission is doing a whole lot better. I can take that message in my observation for the last 2 years. So anyway, just to let you know, that's where I'm coming from as far as planning commissioners go.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner Maderos. I too want to thank you, Norma, for doing a great job and railing us in when we get off track and correcting things that we say that's incorrect. Brian, thank you for putting up with us. I know it seems that we're attacking you, but you're trying to do the best that you can. So I appreciate you. All the commissioners, I mean, we're doing good. We're doing what we're supposed to for the community. And I thank the public for talking and expressing their concerns. I'll get to you, Vice Chair Morris Lopez. And we just need to buckle down and move forward. And that how committee, I'm excited for you guys to get moving. And thank you. Yes, Vice Chair Commissioner Lopez.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to close the comment by saying thank you. This meeting, I feel, was really productive. Even though we just had a couple of action items, I feel the flow of the meeting, the contribution by the public, even though it was a small number, the report that Brian gave us, he was very clear that these were not set in stone. That's why the purpose of the public engagement on Monday. And I want to encourage everybody that's here listening tonight, or if they come back and listen to the recorded meeting, please attend on Monday. We really need public input, and the city is making time. It's really difficult to get both the commissioners and the city council together. I'm coming back home for the weekend and not coming back up here until Tuesday night because it's really important to be present. And I want my neighbors, my friends, relatives, anyone that lives in San Juan. And I really think, honestly, for me personally, even if you don't live in the city limits, but you love San Juan, I think it's worth your input. We're a very unique village. We're a very historic village. Everything that I desire to do as a commissioner is with that whole intent to preserve our historic nature, protect it, preserve it. And this is why it's important to me that ordinance don't get ignored. And I know we've talked about the sign ordinance. I don't think there's any room for discussion on it. It's in print. We don't need to tweak it. We don't need to do anything with it. And I also feel that, giving people passes for 30 days because they're a new business. No, if you're going to open up a business, you need to be aware of what the rules are and ordinances are. And one of them is your signage. So I'd like to see action on that real soon. And I want to say everybody have a great weekend and hope to see you all on Monday. Bring a friend, bring a neighbor. Thank you.
Brian, with that, do you have any comments?
Only looking forward to everybody, your participation and involvement in the upcoming meetings. Next week is going to be challenging for everyone. It's challenging for staff and exciting for the public to be involved, I think. And then at the end of the month, we're going to do it all over again with the active transportation plan. We have a flyer that will be going out. I haven't published it because I'm focusing on the community plan engagement series coming up next week. But tomorrow I'm going to be publishing a flyer that outlines some public engagement efforts with the active transportation plan. And we have the same consultant doing our public engagement programs for both activities. So there's a lot of integration there and a lot of opportunity for people to cross fertilize those efforts. So anyway, looking forward to all that coming up. And thank you. Great meeting.
Thank you. Thank you for the, thank you, Brian. With that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion, but before I do, let me give you an HR training right now. Just a real simple thing. Whenever you have a serious problem and it's a condition of employment or maybe a condition of appointment, you go after it and you hit it real hard with all the kindness you can put, that you can give it, because usually that's the best solution. So with that, I make a motion that we adjourn.
I second
Think about it.
I second that motion.
Okay.
Kindness.
Norma, can you take a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Commissioner David Medeiros.
Yes.
Commissioner Louis Machain. I'm ready for bed.
You did well. You did well. Actually, you did great. And yes.
Thank you. Vice Chair Jackie Morris Lopez.
Yes.
Thank you. Chair Yolanda Delgado.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Good night, everybody. Great meeting.
Good night.
Good night. Good night, Louise. Good night, Norma. Good night, Brian. Good night.
Good night,
Good night,
David.
everyone.
And thank you.
Please
Thank you
note-
for last.
Please
Thank you,
note for the
David, for
record that the
your
meeting has
work.
adjourned at 8:46 p.m.
Thank you.
Bye.